Ladies and gentlemen, the richest man is not he who has but he who feels. The freest person is not the one without chains, but the one who has imagined them gone. Here is the great contradiction that saves us. The instant you assume you are something, you cease to become it. You already are it. The bridge of time between desire and fulfillment collapses not through effort, but through surrender to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I know this sounds insane to reason. Reason will tell you to work harder, plan better, force reality to bend. But imagination requires something far more radical, that you stop trying to get there and dare to be there. Now, tonight I'm going to show you how a single imaginal act performed in complete solitude can overturn empires. You're here because you know something. You've always known it. Even if you couldn't put it into words, somewhere deep in your consciousness, beneath all the doubt and conditioning and fear, you know that you are not a powerless observer stumbling through a random universe. You've had those moments, haven't you? When you thought of someone and within minutes they called. When you feared something and it materialized exactly as you imagined it. When you believed something would go wrong and it did, down to the smallest detail. These weren't coincidences. They were demonstrations of a law as precise as gravity, as reliable as mathematics. If here's what haunts you, isn't it? If you can create negatively with such precision, if your fears can manifest so perfectly, why can't you create positively? Why do your desires seem to evaporate while your worries solidify? Why does the universe appear to say yes to everything you don't want and no to everything you do? Let me tell you why. Every teaching you've encountered, every book you've read, every guru you followed has kept you in the position of beggar. They've taught you to ask, to hope, to send intentions to the universe, to raise your vibration, to wait for alignment. All of these approaches maintain the fundamental lie that you are separate from what you desire, that it exists somewhere out there, that you must somehow attract it across the distance between here and there. This is exactly why you fail. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because the entire premise is false. I'm going to give you something different tonight. Not a technique to get what you want, but a revelation of what you are. You see, the problem has never been that you lack power. You've been using this power every moment of your life. The problem is that you've been using it unconsciously and predominantly against yourself. You've been praying in reverse, declaring your limitations with such conviction that reality has no choice but to obey. What I'm about to share with you is the one law that governs all creation. It's called the law of assumption. Not the law of attraction, not the law of vibration, not the law of manifesting, the law of assumption. And here is how it works. Whatever you assume to be true, whether or not it is currently visible in your world, must harden into fact. Your assumption creates the bridge of incidents that leads inevitably to its own fulfillment. Consciousness is the only reality, and the physical world is its shadow. Change what you are conscious of being, and the shadow must follow. Now I can see you thinking already. You're thinking this is just another positive thinking scheme. Another affirmation practice, another way to tell yourself pretty lies until you feel better. But that's not what I'm teaching. I'm not teaching you to think positively. I'm teaching you to inhabit the consciousness of your desire, already fulfilled with such naturalness that you forget you're assuming anything at all. When you grasp this, when you truly understand that consciousness is cause and the world is effect, you will never again beg life for anything. You will command it from within. By the end of his teaching, you will have the method. You will know exactly how to enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. How to make that feeling so natural that it becomes your dominant state, and how to persist in it until the invisible hardens into the visible. You will understand why the Bible declares I am is the name of God and why your habitual declarations of I am poor, I am lonely, I am stuck, are prayers answered in real time. This isn't about manifestation. This is about remembering who you are. Let me tell you a story. Many years ago, in the midst of the Second World War, a mother came to one of my lectures. She was frantic, desperate in the way only a mother can be when her child is in danger. Her son had been stationed overseas in active combat. Every day she woke to the terror that this might be the day the telegram arrived. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She spent her days glued to the radio, listening for news from the front, her heart stopping at every mention of casualties. She had tried everything: prayer, bargaining with God, even speaking to her congressman. Nothing worked. The war ground on and her son remained in danger. After my lecture, she approached me with tears streaming down her face. "Tell me what to do," she said. "I'll do anything. I'll believe anything. Just tell me how to bring my boy home." I looked at this mother, and I saw in her what I see in so many. A person who has been taught to beg, to plead, to hope that somehow, somewhere a power outside of herself might hear her prayers and take pity. So I told her something that seemed impossible to her rational mind. I said, "Stop praying for his safety. Stop reading the war news. Stop asking God to bring him home. Instead, imagine that he is already home right now. This very moment." She stared at me as though I'd lost my senses. "But he's not home," she said. "He's thousands of miles away in a war zone. How can I imagine he's home when I know he isn't?" And I said to her what I say to you now. You don't imagine something in order to make it happen. You imagine it because in the realm of consciousness it has already happened. Time as you experience it is an illusion. All states exist now. Your son home, your son at war, both exist simultaneously in the infinite present. The only question is, which state are you occupying in consciousness? I taught her a simple technique. Every night before sleep, she was to construct a scene in her imagination. A scene that would only be real if her wish were already fulfilled. I told her to imagine her son sitting in her living room, not coming home, not on his way home, but already there, right or in the room with her. I told her to make it sensory, to see his face, to hear his voice, to smell his cologne, to feel the texture of his uniform under her hands as she embraced him, to notice the small details, the way he'd kick off his boots at the door, the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his presence filling the house. Do this every night, I told her. Don't do it to make him come home. Do it because in imagination he's already home. Live in that scene, inhabit it. Make it so real that your physical reality begins to feel like the dream. And this imaginal reality begins to feel like the truth. She looked at me with a mixture of hope and skepticism. But she was desperate enough to try anything. For 3 weeks, this mother did exactly as I instructed. Every single night without fail she entered that imaginal scene. At first it felt like make-believe. Her rational mind screamed at her that she was being foolish, that she was denying reality, that she should be facing facts. But she persisted. She stopped reading the newspaper. She stopped listening to the radio. She stopped having conversations about the war. Instead, she lived in the consciousness of her son being home. And slowly something remarkable happened. The scene that had felt like pretending began to feel natural. She would catch herself setting an extra place at dinner. She would hear his footsteps in the hall and forget for a moment that physically he was still overseas. The wish fulfilled became more real to her than the physical facts. And then exactly 1 month after she began this practice, she received a telegram. Her heart stopped. Every mother's nightmare. But when she opened it, it wasn't what she feared. Her son's company needed someone who spoke a rare dialect, someone who could serve as an interpreter for a diplomatic mission. It turned out her son had learned this dialect as a child from a neighbor. She had forgotten about it entirely. He certainly hadn't mentioned it on his military application. But somehow someone discovered this skill. He was reassigned immediately, pulled out of active combat, and stationed domestically. Within 2 weeks, he walked through her front door just as she had imagined it, down to the smallest detail. Now the world would call this coincidence. The world would say she was lucky. The world would find irrational explanations for how this happened. But I tell you this, her imaginal act created the bridge of incidents. Her assumption that her son was home created the necessity for his homecoming. Reality reorganized itself to match her consciousness. The how was none of her concern. She didn't need to figure out the logistics. She didn't need to control the circumstances. She simply had to be faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the universe handled the rest. This is the power I'm speaking of. Not magic, not wishful thinking. A law as absolute as any law of physics. What you are conscious of being, you must experience. Not eventually, not if you're lucky, not if you're good enough or worthy enough. Automatically, inevitably, with mathematical precision. But perhaps you're thinking that was just a fortunate coincidence. Let me tell you another story that cannot be explained away so easily. A woman came to me once in great distress. She had received a letter from a close friend, a letter that devastated her. In it, her friend described in clinical, brutal detail a character flaw the woman had been trying to overcome for years. The letter was harsh, unforgiving, and it confirmed the woman's worst fear about herself, that she was fundamentally flawed, that despite all her efforts to change, she remained the same broken person she had always been. She came to my lecture carrying this letter in her purse, like a stone of evidence against herself. After the lecture, she showed it to me, tears streaming down her face. "You see," she said, "this is who I really am. I can imagine all I want, but the truth is in this letter. I'm fooling myself if I think I can change." The letter was indeed harsh. Her friend had not minced words. Every criticism was specific, detailed, documented with examples. It felt like irrefutable proof. But I said to her, "What I say to you now, the past is not fixed. Time is not a river flowing in one direction. All events, past, present, and future exist now, and they can be revised in consciousness." I taught her the practice of revision. "Tonight," I said before you sleep, You're going to rewrite that letter in your imagination. Not the physical letter, the meaning of it. You're going to imagine opening the envelope and reading words of love and affirmation instead of criticism. You're going to feel the relief, the gratitude, the joy of being truly seen and truly loved. She resisted this. Her rational mind rebelled. But I already read it, she protested. How can I change what already happened? The letter exists. The words are written. I can't just pretend they're different. And I said to her, you're not pretending they're different. You're changing what you're conscious of. The letter you read exists in your consciousness as an assumption about yourself. That assumption that you are flawed and criticized is creating your experience. Change the assumption, and you change the meaning of the letter. Change the meaning, and you change its fruit in your life. She was skeptical, but like the mother before her, she was desperate enough to try. Every night for a week before falling asleep, she revised that letter. She imagined unfolding it and reading words of praise. She imagined her friend grown about how much she had grown, how inspired she was by the changes she'd witnessed, how proud she was of her transformation. At first, this felt like denial, like she was lying to herself. But she persisted. She revised that letter over and over, night after night, until the revision felt more real than the original. And then something extraordinary happened. One evening, about 10 days after she began this practice, she was cleaning out her purse and came across the letter again. She opened it, and as she read it, something caught her eye that she hadn't noticed before. The harsh criticism she remembered was indeed there, but it was written entirely in past tense. Her friend had written, "You were this way. You used to do that. These things happened before." What she had read as condemnation was actually testimony. Her friend was bearing witness to her transformation, describing the old self that was dead and gone. The letter hadn't changed. The words were the same. But her consciousness had changed, and therefore what she perceived changed. When she read it the first time, she was in the consciousness of being flawed. So she saw only condemnation. When she read it the second time, she was in the consciousness of being transformed. So she saw only testimony to her resurrection. The same physical letter conveyed two entirely different meanings based on her state of consciousness. She called me in tears, not tears of pain this time, but tears of revelation. It was all in the past tense, she kept saying. How did I miss that? It was all in the past tense. And I told her what I tell you now. You didn't miss it. You weren't ready to see it. Your consciousness creates what you perceive. When you changed your consciousness through revision, you changed what you were able to see. The letter testified to whatever you believed about yourself. When you believed you were flawed, it testified to your flaws. When you believed you were transformed, it testified to your transformation. This is the power of revision. The past is not fixed. It is not a concrete reality that must be endured. It is an assumption in your consciousness, and assumptions can be changed. Every night before you sleep, you can revise your day. Every unpleasant encounter can be rewritten. Every failure can be transformed into success. Every rejection can become acceptance. And as you revise the past in imagination, you change its meaning and its power in your present. You prevent negative assumptions from hardening into fact. Let me tell you one more story, and then I'll explain exactly how this law operates. There was a young man who came to me wanting his own photography studio. He had been working as an assistant in a partner's studio, sharing responsibilities and profits, but he longed to have his own space. The problem was he had no capital, no savings to speak of, no realistic way to afford rent on a commercial space, let alone equipment and supplies. Every logical pathway was blocked. If he went to his partner and asked to split the business, there was no reason for his partner to agree. If he tried to leave and start his own studio, he couldn't afford it. He was stuck. I taught him the principle of living in the end. Don't imagine the process, I said. Don't imagine yourself saving money or negotiating with your partner or finding a cheaper location. Imagine the end. Imagine already owning your own studio. What would that feel like? What would be different? He thought about it and realized that the key moment, the end he was seeking, would be his partner telling him he could have the Reno studio to himself. That one sentence spoken by his partner would mean everything had worked out. So I told him to do something that seemed absurd. Every night before sleep, he was to imagine himself in that studio, hearing his partner say, "You deserve the Reno studio to yourself. It's yours." That's all. Just that one simple scene. Hear those words. Feel the relief and satisfaction of ownership. Fall asleep in that feeling. He thought it was ridiculous. His partner had no reason to offer this. They were 50 partners with no plan to change the arrangement. The company wasn't expanding. There was no second location on the horizon. Logically, it made no sense, but he did it anyway. Night after night, he entered that imaginal scene. He stood in the studio in his mind. He heard his partner's voice. He felt the handshake, the papers being signed, the keys in his hand. He made it as real as he could, and for 3 weeks nothing happened physically. His days continued as normal. His partner never mentioned any changes. The rational world gave him no sign that anything was shifting. And then out of nowhere, the company decided to expand. A second location opened in Bakersfield. They needed someone to run it, and his partner, without any prompting, without any discussion, volunteered to take the new location. He walked into the Reno studio one morning and said, word for word, exactly as it had been imagined, "You deserve the Reno studio to yourself. It's yours." The young man stood there in shock. He had heard those exact words in his imagination for 3 weeks, and now they were being spoken in physical reality. His imaginal act had created a bridge of incidents: the company's decision to expand, the opening of the Bakersfield location, his partner's decision to take it that led inevitably to the fulfillment of his assumption. He didn't create the means. He didn't figure out the how. He simply occupied the state of filled until it felt natural and reality reorganized itself to match. These are not exceptional stories. They are not miracles reserved for special people. They are demonstrations of a law that operates in your life every single day, whether you're aware of it or not. Right now, in this very moment, your assumptions are creating your experience. What you believe about yourself, what you believe about your circumstances, what you believe about your possibilities, these assumptions are the molds into which reality must pour itself. Now, let me explain to you exactly how this law works so you can begin to use it consciously and deliberately in your own life. First, you must understand that consciousness is the only reality. Not the physical world, not matter, not circumstances. Consciousness. You think you live in a world of objects and events that exist independently of you. You think the house across the street exists, whether you're looking at it or not. You think your bank account has a certain balance that is factual and objective. You think other people have thoughts and feelings separate from your awareness of them. But this is the fundamental illusion. The world is not a collection of independent objects that you observe from the outside. The world is a mirror of consciousness. It is the outping of your inner assumptions. You are not in the world. The world is in you. Everything you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell is a projection of conscious. Your consciousness, the Bible tells us this over and over. I am hath sent me unto you. Be still and know that I am God. I am the way, the truth. This is not metaphor. This is precise psychological truths. Your awareness of being your I am is the creative power itself. It is what men call God, and every moment you are declaring I am something. I am poor. I am sick. I am unworthy. I am alone. Or I am abundant. I am healthy. I am loved. I am free. These declarations are not descriptions of reality. They are creative commands that reality must obey. When you say I am, you are speaking as God speaks. You are calling things into being. Most people reverse this. They look at their circumstances and let those circumstances tell them what they are. They look at their empty bank account and say, I am poor. They look at their solitude and say, I am alone. They look at their failures and say, I am not good enough. But this is backwards. The bank account is empty because you are in the consciousness of poverty. You are alone because you are in the consciousness of separation. You fail because you are in the consciousness of inadequacy. Change the consciousness, and the circumstance must follow, not the other way around. This brings us to the second principle. Assumption hardens into fact. An assumption is simply accepting something as true whether or not it is currently visible in your world. Right now you are making countless assumptions. You assume the sun will rise tomorrow. You assume gravity will hold you to the earth. You assume your name is your name. These assumptions are so natural, so automatic that you don't even recognize them as assumptions. They just are. And because you assume them so completely, they manifest with perfect consistency. Now, what if you could take that same level of natural assumption and apply it to your desires? What if you could assume you are wealthy with the same naturalness that you assume the sun will rise? What if you could assume you are loved with the same certainty that you assume gravity will work? This is the art I'm teaching you, the art of assumption. And here's the key. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. I don't care if your bank account is empty right now. I don't care if you're alone right now. I don't care if you've failed 100 times. If you will assume that you are abundant, that you are loved, that you are successful, and if you will persist in that assumption until it becomes natural, it must externalize. It has no choice. Consciousness is cause. The world is effect. Change the cause, the effect must change. But most people give up too soon. They assume wealth for a day and check their bank account. Nothing. They assume love for a week and look around for their soulmate. Not there. They assume success for a month. And when they don't see immediate results, they conclude the law doesn't work. But the law is working perfectly. It's working on your real assumption, not your hopeful one. And your real assumption is revealed by what you feel most natural believing. If assuming wealth feels unnatural, forced, like you're lying to yourself, then you haven't truly assumed it. You're just wishing for it. True assumption feels natural. It feels like what is. When a woman is pregnant, she doesn't wonder if she's pregnant. She doesn't hope she's pregnant. She knows that knowing that assumption of her condition is what I'm pointing you toward. You must assume your desire, fulfilled with that same natural knowing even before you have evidence. This is where the third principle comes in. Imagination creates reality. Now I need to understand what I mean by imagination. I'm not talking about fantasy. I'm not talking about daydreaming. I'm not talking about wishing and hoping and visualizing pretty pictures. I'm talking about the creative power of God Himself. The Bible tells us, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made." This word is imagination. It is the power to conceive, to imagine, to create in consciousness. Before anything appears in your physical world, it must first appear in imagination. The house you live in was imagined by an architect before it was built. The relationship you're in was imagined before it manifested. The job you hold was imagined by you before you held it. But here's what most people miss. Imagination is not just a tool for creating things. Imagination is the thing itself. When you imagine something vividly enough with enough sensory detail, with enough feeling, you are not preparing for it to come. You are experiencing it. In that moment of vivid imagining, the thing exists for you. It is real in consciousness. And consciousness, remember, is the only reality. So when I teach you to imagine the wish fulfilled, I'm not teaching you to send a signal to the universe asking for something. I'm teaching you to create it in consciousness, which is where all creation happens. The physical manifestation is just the echo, the shadow, the printout of what already exists in consciousness. Imagine it real and it is real. The physical world will catch up. It has no choice. Now, the difference between idle and true imagining is this feeling. You must feel the reality of what you're imagining. Not just picture it. Not just think about it, feel it. Your imagination has senses just like your physical body does. In imagination, you can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. And the more sensory details you add, the more real it becomes in consciousness. The more real it becomes in consciousness, the faster it externalizes. Let me give you an example. Don't just imagine numbers in a bank account. That's abstract. It doesn't carry feeling. Instead, imagine something that would only be real if wealth were already yours. Imagine yourself handing a clerk your credit card and not caring about the price. Feel the leather of the wallet in your hand. Hear the clerk say, "Your purchase is approved. Thank you." Feel the satisfaction, the ease, the naturalness of having more than enough. That is imagining with feeling. That is creation. The fourth principle is living in the end. This is perhaps the most important principle of all, and it's the one most people get wrong. Living in the end means thinking from the wish fulfilled, not of the wish fulfilled. There is a world of difference between these two. When you think of your wish, you are acknowledging that you don't have it. You are standing here in lack, looking toward a future fulfillment. Someday I'll be wealthy. Someday I'll find love. Someday I'll be free. This orientation in consciousness, this sense of moving toward something, actually keeps it at a distance. You're perpetually approaching but never arriving. But when you think from the wish fulfilled, you have already arrived. You're not looking forward to wealth. You're looking back from wealth at how you got here. You're not hoping for love. You're experiencing love and remembering when you were alone. You're not trying to be free. You are free. And you can hardly remember what bondage felt like. This is living in the end. How do you identify the end? Ask yourself this question. If my wish were fulfilled right now, what would be different? Not what would happen, but what would be different about me? How would I feel? What would I know? What would I take for granted? That feeling knowing, that taking for granted, that is the end. That is the state you must inhabit in consciousness. For example, if you desire a specific job, the end is not the interview. It's not the offer letter. The end is the naturalness of already having it. It's coming home after your first week and kicking off your shoes with a satisfied sigh. It's telling a friend, I love my new position. It's the sense of relief, of rightness. Of course, this is where I work. That is the end. And you can occupy that state in consciousness right now, tonight before you fall asleep. Now, here's the test to know if you're truly living in the end naturalness. Does your assumption feel natural, or does it feel forced, desperate, needy? If you have to pump yourself up to believe it, if you have to convince yourself, if you feel anxiety about whether it will happen, you're not in the end. You're still trying to get there. But when the assumption is natural, it feels like what is. You forget you're assuming anything at all. That's when you know the work is done. This brings us to the fifth principle, the power of inner speech. Your inner speech, the constant conversation you have with yourself in your mind, is the most powerful force in your life. Most people are completely unaware of their inner talking. Yet it is running all day long, narrating their experience, commenting on their circumstances, rehearsing conversations, reliving past events, worrying about future ones. And this inner speech creates your experience with far more power than any action you take. You see, your inner speech reveals your assumptions. If you catch yourself thinking, I'll never get ahead, that's an assumption. If you hear yourself say internally, nobody appreciates me, that's an assumption. If you rehearse in your mind all the reasons something won't work out, you are assuming failure. And these assumptions, being accepted as true in consciousness, must manifest. They must. The law is impersonal. It doesn't care if your assumptions are positive or negative. It simply gives you what you assume. So here's what you must do. Consciously change your inner speech to match your desired state. If you want to be wealthy, your inner speech must be the inner speech of wealth. Not I'm going to be rich someday, but I'm so grateful for my abundance. Not I hope this works out financially, but money comes to me so easily. You must speak to yourself as though you already are what you desire to be. Now, this is difficult at first. Your old habitual inner speech will fight you. You'll catch yourself mid-negative thought and realize you've been running the old program again. Don't condemn yourself for this. Simply notice it, stop it, and replace it with the inner speech that matches your desire. Over time, with persistence, the new inner speech becomes habitual. And when it becomes habitual, it becomes your assumption. And when it becomes your assumption, It becomes your experience. Let me give you a very important teaching here. When inner speech and desire are in conflict, inner speech always wins. Always. You might desire love while inwardly saying, "Nobody wants me." Guess which one manifests? You might desire success while inwardly saying, "I always mess things up." Guess which one manifests? Your desire is like a wish. Your inner speech is like a command. The universe obeys commands, not wishes. This is why prayer so often fails. People pray, "God, please give me this," while inwardly saying, "I'll never have it. I'll never have it. I'm not worthy of it." The prayer is powerless because the inner speech contradicts it. But when your prayer is your inner speech, when you speak to yourself from the assumption of the wish fulfilled, then prayer becomes powerful. Then prayer is creation. The sixth principle I want to teach you is faith as assumption. The Bible tells us faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Let me translate this for you. Faith is not hoping. Faith is not wishing. Faith is not believing that someday, maybe if you're good enough, God might give you what you want. Faith is the assumption, the acceptance as true of the thing desired before it is visible. When you have true faith, you don't need evidence. You are the evidence. Your consciousness of being what you desire to be is the evidence. The Bible also tells us, according to your faith, be it unto you, not according to your hope, not according to your desire, according to your faith. Your assumption shall it be done. But here's the test of real faith. Are you worried? If you're still worried, your faith is weak. If you're still anxious, still checking and looking for signs, you haven't truly assumed it. True faith is rest. It is the inner peace that comes from knowing, not hoping. Knowing that the thing is already done in consciousness and therefore must externalize. When Jesus said, "Be still and know that I am God," he was teaching this. The stillness is the confidence of completion. The knowing is the assumption. Now, let me be clear about something. This is not about denying physical facts. If you're broke, you're broke. If you're sick, you're sick. If you're alone, you're alone. I'm not telling you to pretend these things aren't true. I'm telling you that these physical facts are effects, not causes. They are the outpitching of past assumptions, and they will continue to be your reality only as long as you continue to assume them as your identity. The moment you change your assumption, the moment you accept in consciousness a new identity, those facts lose their power. They become yesterday's news. They become the past that you're moving away from. Not through struggle, not through effort, but through assumption. You simply assume a new state in consciousness and remain faithful to it. And the old facts crumble and disappear, replaced by new facts that match your new assumption. Now let me teach you exactly how to do this. Let me give you the precise method that will allow you to change your assumptions and therefore change your life. The first technique is what I call the state akin to sleep. You know that drowsy state between waking and sleeping where your body is relaxed, but your mind is still conscious. That is the most powerful time for impressing your subconscious mind with new assumptions. In that state, the conscious mind with all its doubts and fears and habitual thoughts is quiet. The subconscious is open, receptive, impressionable. This is when you plant your seeds. So tonight, when you go to bed, I want you to do this. Lie down in your bed. Let your body become completely relaxed. Don't force it. Just allow the natural relaxation that comes as you prepare for sleep. Feel your body growing heavy, sinking into the mattress. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts begin to drift. You're right on the edge of sleep, but not quite there yet. This is the state you want. Now, in this state, construct a simple scene in your imagination. Not the wish itself, but evidence of it. Something that would only be real if your wish were already fulfilled. For example, if you desire wealth, don't imagine counting money. That's too abstract. Instead, imagine a friend congratulating you on your success. Imagine checking your investment portfolio and feeling satisfied. Imagine writing a large check to charity. Pick one simple scene that implies fulfillment. Make this scene sensory. Don't just see it, hear it, feel it. If there's someone speaking to you, hear their voice. If you're touching something, feel its texture. The more sensory detail you add, the more real it becomes in consciousness. And remember, in consciousness, it is real. This is not pretending. This is creating. Now loop this scene, experience it over and over, and as you do, add feeling to it. Feel the satisfaction, the relief, the joy, the naturalness of your wish fulfilled. Don't perform the scene mechanically. Enter into it emotionally. Make it mean something and keep looping it until you fall asleep inside the scene. The last thing you're aware of before you drift into actual sleep should be this imaginal act. You're literally sleeping in the consciousness of the wish fulfilled. This is the most powerful technique I know. Why? Because you're impressing your subconscious mind at the moment when it is most receptive. You're falling asleep in the state of a wish fulfilled, which means you're carrying that assumption into sleep. And sleep is where consciousness does its deepest work. You wake up different. The assumption has been planted. And if you persist in this night after night after night, the assumption hardens into fact. Now let me tell you the most common mistakes people make with this technique. First, they make the scene too long and complicated. Don't create a whole movie. Create one short scene, maybe 10 to 15 seconds, that implies fulfillment. Loop that one scene. Simple is better. Second, they don't add feeling. They mechanically picture something and wonder why it doesn't work. You must feel it. You must make it emotionally real. Third, they quit too soon. They do it once or twice, see no immediate change and give up. But assumption must be maintained until it becomes natural. That takes persistence. How long should you persist? Until the assumption feels natural. Until you can think of your desire and feel no anxiety, no longing, no sense of lack. Until it just is. That's when you know the work is done. For some assumptions, this happens quickly. For others, it takes weeks or months. It doesn't matter. The time it takes is always proportionate to the naturalness of the assumption. The more natural it feels, the faster it manifests. The more unnatural and forced it feels, the longer it takes. The second technique I want to teach you is revision. This is one of the most powerful practices you will ever learn. Every night before you sleep, I want you to review your day from beginning to end. Replay it like a movie in your mind. Start from the moment you woke up and move through every event, every conversation, every experience. Most of the day will be fine. But when you come to something that didn't go the way you wanted, an unpleasant conversation, a moment of embarrassment, a failure, a rejection, stop. Don't just replay it as it happened. Revise it. In your imagination, rewrite that event. change it to be what you wish it had been. If someone criticized you, imagine them praising you instead. If you lost your temper, imagine remaining calm. If you failed at something, imagine succeeding. Feel the revised version. Make it sensory and real. And then continue replaying your day with the revision in place. By the time you fall asleep, you have revised everything that needs revising. Why does this work? Because the past is not fixed. Time is not a line. All events exist now, and they can be changed in consciousness. When you revise an event, you're not changing what physically happened. You're changing its meaning in your consciousness. You're preventing that event from hardening into a negative assumption. You're preventing yesterday's failures from becoming tomorrow's limitations. I'll tell you something that will seem impossible to your rational mind. If you revise consistently, faithfully, night after night, you will begin to notice something strange. Other people's memories will change. They will remember events differently than they happened. You'll bring up something and they'll say, "No, that's not how it went." And you'll realize their memory matches your revision, not the original event. This isn't magic. This is consciousness creating reality. When you change an assumption in consciousness, everyone and everything must conform to that change. The third technique is controlled inner speech. Throughout your waking day, pay attention to what you're saying to yourself. Catch yourself when you default to negative assumptions. When you hear yourself think this is too hard, stop. Replace it with this is easy for me. When you hear yourself think, I can't afford it, stop. Replace it with I have more than enough. When you hear yourself think they don't like me, stop. Replace it with I am loved. This takes vigilance at first. Your habitual inner speech is so automatic you don't even notice it. But with practice, you become aware. And the more aware you become, the more you can change it. Over time, your inner speech shifts. And when your inner speech shifts, your assumptions shift. And when your assumptions shift, your life shifts. One technique I recommend for this is choosing a short phrase that implies your wish fulfilled. Something simple like, "Isn't it wonderful?" Or, "Thank you." Or, "It is done." Repeat this phrase silently throughout your day. Make it a kind of mantra. When you catch yourself worrying, say it. When you're tempted to complain, say it. When you start to doubt, say it. This phrase acts as an anchor, pulling your consciousness back to the assumption of fulfillment. The fourth technique is the naturalness test. Periodically throughout your day, check in with your assumption. Think about your desire. Notice how you feel. If you feel excited, anxious, desperate, or hopeful, you're still in the state of wanting it. You haven't assumed you have it yet. But if you feel peaceful, satisfied, natural, as though it already is, then you're in the right state. True assumption doesn't feel like anything special. It just feels like what is. If your assumption doesn't feel natural yet, don't force it. Just continue the imaginal practices, continue the revision, continue the controlled inner speech. The more you practice, the more natural the assumption becomes. And naturalness is the key. When something feels natural, your consciousness has accepted it. And what consciousness accepts, it must experience. Now, let me address something that will come up for many of you. You'll do these techniques, and your rational mind will scream at you that you're delusional, that you're denying reality, that you're fooling yourself. This is normal. The rational mind is trained to accept only physical evidence. It doesn't understand that consciousness is prior to form. That what is accepted in consciousness must take form. When these doubts arise, and they will, don't fight them. Don't argue with them. Simply return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Your rational mind will settle down when it sees results, and it will see results if you persist. But you must not let reason talk you out of your assumption. Reason says be realistic. Look at the facts. But facts are yesterday's assumptions made visible. If you let facts dictate your assumptions, you will never create anything new. You will only perpetuate the past. The Bible teaches this in the story of Abraham. God tells Abraham he will have a son. Even though Abraham is old and his wife Sarah is barren, the facts say it's impossible. Reason says it can't happen. But Abraham believed God. He assumed the promise fulfilled. He didn't consider his body or Sarah's body. He didn't let the facts determine his assumption. He let his assumption determine the facts, and Isaac was born. This is what you must do. You must assume your desire fulfilled and refuse to let present circumstances talk you out of it. The facts will change. They must. Consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, you will experience. Don't let the shadow of the physical world convince you that you are powerless. You are the light that casts the shadow. Change the light and the shadow changes. I want to be clear about something else that confuses many people. This is not about forcing yourself to feel happy when you're suffering. This is not about toxic positivity or denying your emotions. If you're sad, be sad. If you're angry, be angry. Don't suppress your feelings. But also don't let those feelings become your identity. Feel the emotion and then return to your assumption. The emotion will pass. The assumption remains. Also, this is not about ignoring practical action. If you assume you're healthy, you may still go to the doctor. If you assume you're wealthy, you may still go to work. The difference is your consciousness. You're not going to the doctor hoping to get well. You're going as someone who is well, just managing your health. You're not going to work to earn money you lack. You're going as someone who is abundant, just occupying your time productively. The action is the same. The consciousness is different, and the consciousness determines the outcome. Another question I'm often asked: what if my desire involves another person? What if I want a specific person to love me? What if I want my boss to promote me? What if I want my child to change their behavior? The answer is the same. Everyone in your world is you pushed out. The other person is not separate from you. They exist in your consciousness, and they must conform to your assumptions about them. If you assume someone is cold toward you, they must be cold. If you assume someone loves you, they must love you. Not because you're controlling them, but because there is no them separate from your consciousness of them. This doesn't violate free will. There is no free will in the way people imagine it. All will is God's will, and God is consciousness. When you change your consciousness, everyone in your world changes to match it. They don't lose their freedom. They simply reflect what you are conscious of. So if you desire a change in how someone relates to you, change how you relate to them in consciousness. Assume they are the way you want them to be. Persist in that assumption, and they must become it because they have no existence outside of your consciousness. Now I realize this is a radical teaching. It's difficult for the rational mind to accept, but test it. Don't take my word for it. Assume something specific about someone in your life and persist in that assumption for 30 days. Assume they admire you. Assume they seek your company. Assume they value your opinion. Persist in this assumption. See them this way in your imagination. Speak to them this way in your inner speech. Revise any contradictory evidence and watch what happens. They will change, not because you manipulated them, but because your consciousness of them changed. And everyone is you pushed out. Let me talk for a moment about what I call the bridge of incidence. When you assume something in consciousness, you don't need to figure out how it will manifest. The how is not your concern. Your assumption creates a bridge, a series of events, circumstances, meetings, opportunities that leads naturally to its own fulfillment. These events may seem like coincidences. They may seem like luck, but they're not. They're the automatic outworking of your assumption. Remember the mother whose son came home from war. She didn't know he had a rare language skill. She didn't arrange for his company to need an interpreter. She didn't pull strings or manipulate circumstances. She simply assumed he was home. And reality created the bridge of incidence, the discovery of his skill, the need for that skill. His reassignment that led to the fitment of her assumption. This is how it always works. You provide the assumption. Reality provides the means. This is why you must not concern yourself with the how. When you do, you limit the ways your assumption can manifest. You try to force it through specific channels. But consciousness is infinitely creative. It will find ways you never imagined. Trust it, assume the end. Let the bridge build itself. I also want to talk about what happens when you persist in an assumption, and it seems like the opposite is manifesting. This is very common and it confuses many people. You assume you're healthy and you get sick. You assume you're wealthy and you lose money. You assume you're loved and someone rejects you. When this happens, don't panic. Don't take it as evidence that the law doesn't work. What's usually happening is this. Your old assumption is dying, and it's making noise on its way out. The universe is clearing away the old to make room for the new. Or sometimes the opposite appears so that you can revise it, so that you can prove to yourself that you're the operant power, not circumstances. I call this the testing period. It's your consciousness saying, do you really believe this? Or are you going to let circumstances convince you otherwise? When this happens, when the opposite appears, don't react. Don't let it change your assumption. Instead, revise it immediately. If you assumed you're healthy and then got sick, don't say, see, it doesn't work. Say, that was the old assumption dying. I revised this. I am healthy. And persist. If you hold your assumption despite contradictory evidence, the evidence must eventually conform. It has no choice. Consciousness is cause. The world is effect. Now let me teach you about desire itself. Desire is not something to be ashamed of. Desire is God expressing Himself in you, showing you what you can become. The very fact that you desire something means it is possible for you. If it weren't possible, you wouldn't desire it. Desire is the promise its fulfillment. It wouldn't exist in you if its fulfillment didn't already exist in consciousness. So don't pray to have your desires removed. Don't try to kill through discipline or detachment. Desire is a gift. It's the universe's way of revealing what's available to you. Instead of trying to suppress desire, fulfill it in imagination. Give it what it wants in consciousness. When you fulfill desire in consciousness, you satisfy it at its source. And when desire is satisfied, it expresses itself as fulfillment in your world. The whole of life is just the appeasement of hunger. Not just physical hunger, but spiritual hunger. The hunger to be more, to have more, to experience more. Every desire is a hunger, and every hunger has a state of consciousness as its natural satisfaction. Find that state, occupy that state, and the desire resolves itself into manifestation. I also want to address the question of worthiness. So many people believe they're not worthy of their desires. They believe they need to earn it, deserve it, but prove themselves first. But worthiness has nothing to do with it. The law is impersonal. It doesn't judge you as worthy or unworthy. It simply gives you what you assume. If you assume you're unworthy, you'll experience unworthiness. If you assume you're worthy, you'll experience worthiness. The law doesn't care about your past, your mistakes, your flaws. It only cares about your present assumption. So, if you find yourself thinking, "I don't deserve this," recognize that as just another assumption. It's not truth. It's not fact. It's an assumption you've accepted, probably from others, probably from past experiences, but it's not binding. Change the assumption. Assume you are worthy. Assume you deserve every good thing. Not because you've earned it, but because you are the operant power. You are consciousness expressing itself. And consciousness deserves to express fully, completely, abundantly. Let me tell you something that might shock you. God is not moral. The law is not moral. It doesn't punish sin and reward virtue. It simply manifests consciousness. I've seen bad people prosper because they assumed prosperity. I've seen good people suffer because they assumed suffering. Morality is important for human society, but it has nothing to do with manifestation. What matters is consciousness. What matters is assumption. Assume abundance, and you'll have abundance regardless of whether you're good or bad. Assume lack, and you'll have lack regardless of your virtue. This doesn't mean morality doesn't matter. It means morality and manifestation are separate principles. If you want to be moral, be moral. If you want to manifest, assume. Both are possible, both are valid, but don't confuse them. Don't think you need to be morally perfect before you can manifest your desires. You don't. You just need to change your consciousness. Now let me teach you about time. You experience time as linear past, present, future. But in consciousness, all time is now. The past exists now as memory. The future exists now as imagination. There is only this eternal present moment, and everything exists within it. When you imagine something in the future, you're not creating something that doesn't yet exist. You're experiencing it now in consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality. This is why you can manifest instantly, or it can take years. The time it takes is not determined by some external law of time. It's determined by how quickly your assumption becomes natural. If you assume something, and it feels natural immediately, it can manifest immediately. If it feels unnatural, and you have to work to maintain the assumption, it will take longer. Time is your consciousness's way of externalizing what's internal. The more internal resistance, the more time required. The less resistance, the less time required. This is also why you can revise the past. The past is not a fixed point in time behind you. The past is an assumption in your present consciousness. Change the assumption and you change the past. Not literally the event still occurred, but the meaning, the power, the fruit of those events change. A traumatic past can be revised into a character-building past. A shameful past can be revised into a triumphant past. Not by lying, but by changing what you're conscious of. Let me also address something important. What if you assume something and it doesn't manifest? There are a few possible reasons. First, you didn't truly assume it. You wished for it, hoped for it, tried to believe it, but you never felt it natural. The test is always naturalness. Second, you assumed it but then contradicted it with your inner speech or with worry. You assumed and then unassumed. You must persist without wavering. Third, you assumed the wrong thing. You assumed the means instead of the end. You imagined the how instead of the what. Always assume the end, never the means. But here's what I want you to understand. The law never fails. It can't fail. Consciousness is the only reality, and reality must express consciousness. If something didn't manifest, it's because your consciousness wasn't truly changed, not because the law doesn't work. This is important because it means you're always in control. You never need to blame circumstances, other people, or God. You simply need to examine your consciousness and change what needs changing. Now, I want to talk about something very important. The difference between this teaching and what's commonly called the law of attraction. The law of attraction teaches you that you're here, and your desire is there, and you need to attract it across the distance through vibration, feeling, or thought. This creates a fundamental duality, you and the thing. And as long as you're trying to attract something, you're affirming that you don't have it. The law of assumption is different. It teaches that there is no distance, no separation. Consciousness is all there is. Your desire doesn't exist somewhere out there. It exists in consciousness, and so do you. When you assume you have it, you and the desire become one in consciousness. There's nothing to attract. There's nothing to wait for. It already is. The physical manifestation is just the outpitching of what already is in consciousness. This is why assumption is more powerful than attraction. Attraction keeps you in the state of wanting. Assumption puts you in the state of having. Attraction is always future tense. Assumption is always present tense. Attraction says, I will have it. Assumption says, I have it. And the universe only responds to present tense declarations. Let me give you a very practical example of how to apply all of this. Suppose you desire a specific amount of money. Let's say you need 10,000. Most people would approach this by visualizing the money, by feeling abundant, by repeating affirmations about wealth. And these things can help, but they're not the core practice. The core practice is this. Assume you already have 10,000. What would be different if you had it right now? Maybe you'd feel relief. Maybe you'd pay off a debt. Maybe you'd take your family to dinner without worrying about the cost. Pick one simple action or feeling that implies you have the money and experience that in imagination. But here's the key. Don't imagine getting the money. Don't imagine where it comes from. Don't imagine winning the lottery or getting a raise or selling something. Just imagine having it and what you do with it. Imagine checking your bank balance and seeing 10,000 more than you have now. Feel the satisfaction, feel the relief. Make it sensory and real. Do this every night before sleep. Do it in the state akin to sleep, and then let it go. Don't obsess about it during the day. Don't check your bank account expecting it to appear. Just go about your life from the consciousness of having it. Your inner speech during the day should reflect this consciousness. When you think about money, think from abundance, not toward abundance. When bills come, don't panic. Pay them from the consciousness of having plenty. Your assumption will create the bridge of incidents. Maybe someone will pay you back an old debt. Maybe an unexpected opportunity will appear. Maybe a refund you forgot about will arrive. The how doesn't matter. Just maintain the assumption and the money must come. The same process applies to any desire. Relationship, health, success, it's always the same. Identify the end. Assume you're already there. Make it feel natural. Persist until it manifests. Don't concern yourself with the how or the when. Those are not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the assumption. Now, let me address one more thing that stops many people. The fear that this is selfish or wrong. You've been taught to be humble, to not want too much, to be satisfied with less. And these teachings have convinced you that desiring more is greedy or selfish. But I tell you this, you are not serving the world by remaining small. You are not serving God by accepting limitation. God is infinite abundance expressing itself as you. When you assume abundance, you're allowing God to express fully through you. When you assume lack, you're blocking God's expression. You don't help others by being poor. You don't inspire others by being sick. You don't bless others by being miserable. When you assume the highest vision for yourself, you become a living demonstration of what's possible. You show others what consciousness can do. You give them permission to assume their own greatness. This is not selfish. This is service. And here's something else. When you change your consciousness, everyone in your world benefits. When you assume abundance, you become generous. When you assume love, you become loving. When you assume peace, you become peaceful. Your consciousness radiates outward and lifts everyone around you. So don't hold back from your desires out of false humility. Assume the fullness of what you can be and watch how it blesses everyone in your life. I want to leave you with this understanding. You are not learning something new tonight. You're remembering what you've always known. You've been using this power your entire life. Every circumstance you experienced, every relationship you've had, every success and every failure, all of it was created by your consciousness. The only difference now is that you're aware of it. You can use this power deliberately, consciously, purposefully. Tonight, before you fall asleep, you're going to do something that will change your life. You're going to dare to assume you already are what you desire to be, not hope for it, not work toward it, not pray for some external power to give it to you. You're going to be it in imagination, with such complete abandon that you fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And when you wake tomorrow, something will have shifted. Maybe not outwardly yet, but inwardly you'll be different. And the outward must follow the inward. It always does. This is not a Quidditch trick. This is a law as fundamental as gravity. And like gravity, it works whether you believe in it or not. But when you work with it consciously, when you harness it deliberately, you become the master of your fate. You become the captain of your soul. You become what you were always meant to be, the operant power in your world. So let me recap what I've taught you tonight, because I want you to leave here with absolute clarity. Consciousness is the only reality. The physical world is its shadow. What you are conscious of being, you must experience. This is not negotiable. This is not optional. This is law. Assumption is the key. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Your current circumstances are the hardened facts of your past assumptions. Want different circumstances? Change your assumptions. Don't let the present facts determine your assumptions. Let your assumptions determine your facts. Imagination creates reality. Not metaphorically, literally. What you imagine with feeling and persistence must externalize. The physical world is the outpouring of imagination. Imagine the wish fulfilled, and it is fulfilled in consciousness. Stay faithful to that imaginal act, and the physical manifestation must follow. Live in the end. Think from the wish fulfilled, not of the wish fulfilled. Don't imagine getting there. Imagine being there. Feel what you would feel. Know what you would know. Take for granted what you would take for granted. This is living in the end. Control your inner speech. Your inner conversation creates your experience. Speak to yourself from the assumption of the wish fulfilled. When you catch yourself thinking negatively, stop and revise. Your inner speech is your prayer, and it's always answered. Have faith, which is assumption made natural. Don't hope. Don't wish no. Feel the reality of your desire now before evidence appears. This knowing, this assumption, is what the Bible calls faith. And according to your faith, it is done unto you. Revise your past. Every night before sleep, replay your day and change what needs changing. Don't let negative events harden into negative assumptions. Rewrite them in imagination. This prevents the past from creating your future. And most importantly, persist. Don't do this once and quit. Don't do it for a week and give up when you don't see immediate results. Persist until the assumption becomes natural. Persist until you forget you're assuming anything. Persist until the inner and the outer are one. That's when you know the work is done. You are not broken. You've never been broken. You've simply been using your power unconsciously and often against yourself. You've been creating your reality all along. You just didn't know it. Now you know, and knowing this changes everything. You are not powerless. You've never been powerless. You are the operant power in your world. You are consciousness expressing itself. You are God in human form. When you say I am, you are speaking with the creative power of God Himself. Use this power wisely. Use it lovingly. Use it deliberately. You are not waiting for life to change. Life is waiting for you to change. The moment you change your consciousness, your world must change to match it. Not because of some mysterious external force, but because the world is your consciousness made visible. Change the consciousness, change the world. It's that simple. So tonight, I want you to make a decision. What is it you truly desire? What if the one thing, if you had it, would transform your life? Don't choose multiple things. Choose one. Get clear on what you want, and then ask yourself, if I had this right now, what would be different? How would I feel? What would I know? What would I take for granted? That feeling, that knowing, that naturalness, that is your assumption. That is the state of consciousness you need to occupy. And tonight, before you sleep, you're going to occupy that state. You're going to construct one simple scene that implies your wish is fulfilled. You're going to enter that scene with all your senses. You're going to feel it real, and you're going to fall asleep in that feeling. Tomorrow night, you'll do it again, and the night after that. You'll persist in this assumption until it becomes natural, until you forget you're assuming anything, until the inner reality is so real that the outer reality begins to feel like the dream. And then, without knowing how or when, you'll wake up one day and realize it's done. The thing you imagined has become the thing you're experiencing. The assumption has hardened into fact. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is the law. And the law is impersonal, impartial, and absolutely reliable. Test it. Don't take my word for anything. Test it in your own life. Choose something specific. Assume it's already done. Persist in that assumption for 30 days without wavering. And watch what happens. The results will convince you more than any words I could say. And when you see it work, when you see your assumption manifest in your physical reality, don't be surprised. Don't call it a miracle. Don't think you got lucky. Recognize it for what it is. Consciousness creating reality. You did this. Your assumption did this. And if you can do it once, you can do it again and again for the rest of your life. You have been given the greatest power in the universe. The power to create your reality through consciousness. Most people will never know this. Most people will live their entire lives believing they're victims of circumstance, powerless observers in a random world. But you now know the truth. You are not a victor. You are the creator. So go now, take this teaching into your life. Apply it. Test it. Prove it to yourself. And when you do, when you see the law working in your life, remember this moment. Remember when everything changed. Remember when you learned who you really are. You are not limited by the past. You are not bound by circumstances. You are not at the mercy of other people or events or conditions. You are consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality. Everything else is shadow. Everything else is effect. You are cause. Be still. Know that you are the I am. Know that you are the creative power. Know that you are God expressing Himself as you. And from this knowing, this stillness, this certainty, assume the life you desire. Assume it now. Assume it fully. Assume it naturally. And watch as your world transforms to match. If this teaching resonated with something deep inside you, if somewhere in your being you recognize this as truth, I invite you to share your experience. Leave a comment telling me what assumption you're going to test tonight. What are you going to dare to be? What are you going to claim as already done in consciousness? Let's build a community of conscious creators, of people who know who they are and what they're capable of. And if you want more of these teachings, if you want to go deeper into the law and the promise, subscribe to this channel. I share these principles every week because I know they can transform lives. I've seen it happen countless times. I've watched people go from poverty to wealth, from sickness to health, from despair to joy, not through luck, not through chance, but through conscious application of this law. But don't subscribe because you want more videos. Subscribe because you're committing to this path. Subscribe because you're ready to take responsibility for your life. Subscribe because you recognize that you are the operant power and you're ready to operate consciously. Remember this. You are not learning to manifest. You are learning to remember who you are. You are consciousness. You are the I am. You are the creative power of the universe expressing itself as a human being. When you fully grasp this, when you fully accept this, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you realize you were never separate from the world. You and the world are one. You are consciousness, and the world is consciousness made visible. So go now, lie down in your bed. Enter the state akin to sleep. Construct your scene, feel it real, and fall asleep in the consciousness of the wish fulfilled. Tomorrow you will wake up different. And if you persist in this practice, if you remain faithful to your assumption, your world will begin to be assumed in consciousness. This is my promise to you. Consciousness is the only reality. What you assume, you become. What you feel deeply in imagination, you experience physically in your world. This is law. This is truth. This is the secret that changes everything. Be still and know that you are that which you desire to be. You are not becoming it. You are not attracting it. You already are it in consciousness. And consciousness is all that is. The rest is just time catching up to what you've already claimed in the eternal now. Go in peace. Go in power. Go in the certainty that you are the creator of your world. And when you see your assumptions harden into fact, when you see your imaginal acts become physical realities, remember this night. Remember when you learned the secret. Remember when everything changed. Remember when you discovered who you really are. Good night. And know that as you sleep tonight in the consciousness of the wish fulfilled, you are creating tomorrow's reality. Sleep well, create well, and wake to a world that reflects the God you are. But before you go, let me speak to you about something I know will arise in the coming days. You're going to wake up tomorrow, and for a moment, you're going to feel different. Something will have shifted inside you. You'll remember this teaching, and you'll feel a sense of possibility that perhaps you haven't felt in years. But then as the day unfolds will try to reassert themselves. The voice of doubt will whisper, was that real? Can it really be that simple? Am I fooling myself? Listen to me carefully. This is the critical moment. This is where most people fail, not because the law doesn't work, but because they give up at the first sign of resistance. They allow the old consciousness to pull them back. They let the physical facts intimidate them. They surrender their assumption to their circumstances. But you must not do this. You must understand that the old consciousness is dying, and it will fight for its life. It will show you all the evidence of why your assumption is impossible. It will remind you of past failures. It will point to present lack. It will fill your mind with logical reasons why this can't work. This is normal. This is expected. This is part of the process. The question is, will you remain faithful to your assumption, or will you let circumstances dictate your consciousness? Will you be like the mother who persisted in imagining her son home, despite the war continuing? Will you be like the man who kept imagining he owned the studio despite seeing no evidence? Will you have the courage to assume you are what you desire to be even when everything around you says you're not? This is the test of faith. And I tell you, if you pass this test, if you remain faithful to your assumption despite contradictory evidence, you will see miracles in your life. Not because you're special, but because you've learned to operate the law consciously. let me give you some very practical guidance for the days ahead. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you turn on the news, before you engage with the physical world, lie there for a few moments and render the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Don't think about your day. Don't plan. Don't worry. Just feel. Feel yourself as the person who already has what you desire. Feel the satisfaction. Feel the naturalness. Start your day from this consciousness. As you go about your day, pay attention to your inner speech. You're going to catch yourself dozens of times speaking from the old assumption. I can't afford it. This is too hard. It never works out for me. Every time you catch yourself, stop. Don't condemn yourself. Don't feel guilty. Just stop and replace that inner speech with the speech that matches your new assumption. I have abundance. This is easy for me. Everything works out for me. This is tedious work at first. You'll feel you're constantly policing your mind. But I promise you it gets easier after a few days. You'll start to catch yourself more quickly. After a few weeks, the new inner speech will start to become automatic. And when it becomes automatic, it becomes your assumption. And when it becomes your assumption, it becomes your experience. Now, let me address something specific that almost everyone encounters: the temptation to test the law. You'll assume something, and then you'll immediately start checking to see if it's working. You'll look for signs. You'll analyze circumstances. You'll ask yourself, is it happening yet? This is natural, but it's also counterproductive. When you test, you're actually affirming that it hasn't happened yet. You're operating from the consciousness of waiting for it, which means you don't truly assume you have it. Think about it this way. Do you test whether you're breathing? Do you check to see if gravity is still working? No. Because you assume these things so completely that testing never occurs to you. That's the level of assumption you're aiming for. So here's what I want you to do. Assume your desire fulfilled and then drop it. Don't obsess over it. Don't constantly check for progress. Don't analyze every little thing that happens looking for signs. Just assume it's done. Go about your life in freeness. Is creating the bridge of incidents. The less you interfere with your conscious testing, the faster it manifests. This doesn't mean you ignore opportunities when they arise. If something comes up that moves you toward your desire, take the action. But take it from the consciousness of someone who already has the thing, not someone who's desperately grasping for it. There's a world of difference between those two states. Let me tell you about a man who learned this distinction beautifully. He desired a specific job at a company he admired. He did everything I taught him. He imagined having the job. He felt the satisfaction of it. He fell asleep nightly in that assumption. But during the day, he was obsessed. He checked the company website daily for job postings. He asked everyone he knew if they had connections there. He sent his resume multiple times. He was trying to force the how. I told him, you're operating from two different states of consciousness. At night, you're assuming you have the job. During the day, you're assuming you don't. Which assumption is stronger? He realized his daytime consciousness was contradicting his nighttime imagination. So I told him to stop. Stop checking the website. Stop networking frantically. Stop sending unsolicited resumes. Assume you already work there and go about your current job as someone who's just biding their time, before starting the new position. He did this. He stopped trying to make it happen and just lived from the assumption that it was already done. 2 weeks later, completely out of the blue, a former colleague contacted him. This colleague had just been promoted at the company he desired and needed someone for his old position. He didn't even have to apply. He was offered the job in a casual phone call. The bridge of incidents built itself when he stopped trying to build it manually. This is what I mean by trusting the law. Your assumption will create the path. You don't need to figure out the how. You don't need to force doors open. You just need to maintain the assumption and let reality reorganize itself. It will, it must. Consciousness is cause. Now, I want to talk to you about persistence because this is where most people give up. They assume something for a few days, maybe a week, and when they don't see immediate results, they conclude it doesn't work. But assumption is like planting a seed. You don't plant a seed today and expect to see a tree tomorrow. You plant it, you water it, you trust the process, and eventually it grows. The time it takes depends on the type of seed and the conditions of the soil. Some assumptions manifest quickly because they feel natural immediately. If you assume something that doesn't contradict your existing concept deeply, it can manifest in days or even hours. But if you're assuming something that contradicts years of conditioning, it will take longer. Not because the law is slow, but because you're working against deep-rooted assumptions that need time to dissolve. How long should you persist? As long as it takes. I know that's not the answer you want. You want me to tell you 30 days or 90 days or some specific timeline. But the truth is there is no timeline. You persist until the assumption becomes natural. You persist until you forget you're assuming. You persist until the thing manifested feels as inevitable as the sunrise. For some people, this happens in days. For others, it takes months. For deeply rooted changes, it might take a year or more of consistent practice. But here's what I promise you. If you persist, truly persist without wavering, without giving up, without letting circumstances convince you otherwise, it will manifest. It has no choice. The law is law. And here's something beautiful that happens along the way. Even before the thing manifests physically, your life begins to change. You'll notice opportunities appearing. You'll notice people treating you differently. You'll notice synchronicities and coincidences. These are the first signs. Your assumption is taking root in consciousness and beginning to externalize. Don't get excited by these signs and lose your assumption. Just note them and continue in your assumption. Let me also address what happens when you're trying to change a relationship or affect another person. This is a common question. People ask me, can I really change how someone else thinks or feels about me? Don't they have free will? And I'll tell you what I've told thousands of others. Everyone in your world is you pushed out. They have no existence separate from your consciousness of them. I know this is hard to accept. Your rational mind rebels against it. Surely other people are real separate beings with their own thoughts and feelings, right? Yes. In their own consciousness they are. But in your consciousness, in your world, they are reflections of what you assume about them. When you change your assumption about someone, they must change in your experience. Not because you're controlling them, but because you're changing the consciousness that creates your experience of them. Let me give you a very specific example. A woman came to me deeply hurt by her sister. They had been close as children, but as adults, they had grown apart. Her sister was cold, critical, constantly judging her choices. Every phone call ended in an argument. Every visit ended in tears. She wanted to heal this relationship, but she didn't see how it was possible. Her sister seemed fixed in her attitude. I taught her this principle. Your sister, as you experience her, is your consciousness made visible. If you assume she's critical, she will be critical. If you assume she's cold, she will be cold. But if you assume she's loving, supportive, proud of you, she must become that in your experience. The woman was skeptical, but she tried it. Every night before sleep, she imagined a phone call with her sister. In this imagined call, her sister was warm, supportive, interested in her life, proud of her accomplishments. She didn't imagine the sister changing. She imagined the sister already being different. For 2 weeks, nothing changed in their actual interactions. The sister was still cold, still critical, but the woman persisted in her imaginal act. And then something shifted. Her sister called her one evening completely out of character and apologized for how she had been acting. She said she'd been thinking a lot about their relationship and wanted to start over. Within a month, their relationship was completely transformed. The critical sister became a supportive sister, not because the woman manipulated her, but because the woman changed her assumption. And everyone must conform to assumptions in your world. This same principle applies to any relationship. Your boss, your spouse, your children, your friends, they are all you pushed out. Change your consciousness of them, and they must change in your experience. This doesn't violate their free will. In their own consciousness, they're making your own choices. But in your consciousness, they reflect what you assume about them. Now, let me speak to those of you who are dealing with physical ailments. You want to heal your body, but you're not sure if this law applies to health. Let me tell you clearly, it applies to everything. Your body is consciousness made visible, just like everything else in your world. Every cell in your body is responding to your consciousness in every moment. If you assume you're sick, your body must reflect that assumption. If you assume you're healthy, your body must reflect that assumption. This doesn't mean you ignore medical care. By all means, see doctors, take medicine. Do what you need to do, but do it from the consciousness of someone who is healthy, not someone who is sick. Go to the doctor as a healthy person managing their health, not as a sick person hoping to get well. I knew a man who was diagnosed with a serious illness. The doctors gave him a very poor prognosis. He could have accepted that diagnosis as fact. He could have assumed he was dying. But instead, he assumed he was healthy. Every night he imagined himself years in the future, telling someone about how he had been sick once but was now completely healthy. He felt the vitality. He felt the strength. He lived in the consciousness of perfect health, despite his current symptoms. He continued his medical treatment, but he did it from this assumption of health, and within 6 months his doctors were baffled. The illness was gone, completely gone. They called it spontaneous remission. They said it was a medical miracle. But it wasn't a miracle. It was the law. His assumption of health overrode the physical facts. Consciousness created a new reality. This is available to all of you. Whatever condition your body is in right now, It is not fixed. It is not final. It is the outpouring of past assumptions. Change the assumption and the body must change. Assume you are healthy, vital, strong, and your body will reorganize itself to match that assumption. Now let me address money, because I know many of you are here wanting financial abundance. The same law applies. Money is not something you attract from outside yourself. Money is consciousness made visible. When you are in the consciousness of abundance, when you truly assume you are wealthy, money must flow to you. It has no choice. But here's what most people do wrong. They imagine having money while inwardly feeling lack. They visualize a big bank account while thinking, I hope this works because I'm broke. This doesn't work because the assumption of lack is stronger than the imagination of wealth. Your true assumption, the one that manifests, is revealed by how you feel when you're not deliberately imagining. So, here's how to work with money. Don't focus on the amount. Focus on the feeling. What does wealth feel like? It feels like freedom. It feels like ease. It feels like generosity. It feels like you don't have to check the price before buying something. It feels like you can say yes to opportunities without worrying about cost. That feeling, that consciousness of abundance is what you need to occupy. Start occupying it now, today, before the money appears. When you go to the store, feel wealthy even if your bank account is low. When you pay bills, pay them from the consciousness of abundance, not lack. When you see something you want, instead of thinking, I can't afford it, think, I choose not to buy it right now, or, that's nice, and I have so much already. These subtle shifts in inner speech change your consciousness, and your consciousness determines your experience. I've seen people go from poverty to wealth using this principle. Not overnight, but inevitably. They changed their consciousness first, and the money followed. Sometimes it came through new job opportunities. Sometimes through unexpected gifts or inheritances. Sometimes through business ideas that suddenly worked. The how doesn't matter. The consciousness creates the means. Let me also speak to those of you who desire love. You want a relationship. You want someone to choose you. You want to feel cherished and desired. This is one of the most common desires, and it's one where people make the most mistakes. They assume they are unlovable while trying to attract love. They focus on their loneliness while imagining a partner. They feel desperate while hoping someone will choose them. Here's what you must understand. You don't attract love. You become love. When you are in the consciousness of being loved, when you assume you are lovable, desirable, cherished, you must experience love. Not because someone out there finally decides you're worthy, but because your consciousness creates the experience of being loved. So don't imagine someone falling in love with you. That keeps you in the state of not being loved yet. Instead, imagine already being loved. Feel what it feels like to be adored. Feel what it feels like to be someone's priority. Feel what it feels like to be desired and cherished. Occupy that state, and the person who reflects that love must appear in your experience. And if you desire a specific person, the same principle applies. Don't imagine them changing their mind about you. That assumes they don't love you now. Instead, imagine they already love you. Imagine conversations where there are moments obvious. Imagine moments of intimacy and connection. Live in the feeling of being loved by them. And they must become that in your experience. But here's the key. You must first love yourself. You must assume you are worthy of love. If you don't believe you're lovable, no amount of imagining will change your experience. Because the deeper assumption, I'm not lovable, will override it. So start there. Assume you are lovable. Assume you are worthy. Assume you are enough exactly as you are. When that becomes your foundation, attracting love becomes effortless. Now I want to return to something I mentioned earlier, but need to emphasize again. The importance of the state akin to sleep. This is not just one technique among many. This is the most powerful time for impressing the subconscious mind. You see, during your waking hours, your conscious mind is active, critical, analytical. It questions everything. It doubts. It argues. But in that drowsy state before sleep, the conscious mind is quiet. The gates to the subconscious are open. When you imagine in this state, you're bypassing all the mental resistance. You're planting your assumption directly into the subconscious mind, which has no ability to reject it. The subconscious simply accepts what it's given and sets about externalizing it. This is why I say fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not fall asleep thinking about it. Fall asleep in it. The last thing you're aware of before losing consciousness should be the feeling of having your desire. Let me be very specific about how to do this effectively. When you lie down tonight, don't just lie there and try to imagine. First, relax your body completely. Start with your toes and work your way up. Feel each part of your body becoming heavy, relaxed, almost numb. This physical relaxation is important because it quiets the mind. A tense body creates a busy mind. A relaxed body creates a receptive mind. Once your body is completely relaxed, your mind will start to drift. Thoughts will come and go, but they'll be lazy, unfocused thoughts. This is the state you want. Now, gently bring your imaginal scene into focus. Don't force it. Don't concentrate hard. Just gently place your awareness on the scene. See it, hear it, feel it, but do it gently as though you're watching it through a soft focus. And here's the crucial part. Add emotion. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction, the gratitude of your wish being fulfilled. This feeling is what gives the scene power. Without feeling, the scene is just a mental picture with no creative force. With feeling, it becomes a seed planted in consciousness that must grow into manifestation. Loop this scene. Experience it once, then again, then again. Keep coming back to it. Every time your mind wanders, and as you do this, you'll feel yourself slipping towards sleep. Your awareness will start to fade. This is perfect. Let it happen. The goal is to carry that scene and that feeling across the threshold of sleep. To literally fall asleep inside your imaginal act. When you do this consistently night after night after night, something remarkable happens. The assumption you're planning in sleep begins to emerge in your waking hours. You'll find yourself naturally thinking from the wish fulfilled. You'll find yourself naturally speaking from that consciousness. The work you're doing in the state akin to sleep is reshaping your entire consciousness. And here's something many people don't realize. You can also use this state for revision. Instead of imagining the wish fulfilled, you can replay your day and revise the parts that need revising. This is just as powerful, if not more so, because you're preventing negative assumptions from taking root. Think about it. Every negative experience you have during the day, if accepted and not revised, becomes a negative assumption. and negative assumptions create negative experiences. So by revising your day before sleep, you're breaking this cycle. You're preventing yesterday's problems from becoming tomorrow's reality. Let me give you a very practical example of the power of revision. A man came to me who was constantly having conflicts at work. Every day something would happen. A disagreement with a colleague, a criticism from his boss, a mistake he made that embarrassed him. He would come home feeling defeated, anxious about going back the next day. I taught him revision. Every night before sleep, he would replay his day. When he got to a negative interaction, he would revise it. He would imagine the colleague being friendly instead of confrontational. He would imagine the boss praising him instead of criticizing. He would imagine handling the mistake with grace and competence. He revised everything that needed revising. Within 2 weeks, his work life completely transformed. The conflict stopped. The colleague who had been antagonistic became friendly. The boss who had been critical became supportive. His own performance improved dramatically. Nothing changed externally at first, but by changing his consciousness through revision, he changed his experience. The outer world had no choice but to conform to his revised consciousness. This is the power available to you every single night. Don't go to sleep rehearsing your problems. Don't go to sleep worried about tomorrow. Don't go to sleep replaying the negative events of today. Revise it all. Go to sleep in a perfect world, and you will wake to a world that increasingly reflects that perfection. Now, let me speak about something that concerns many people. What if you assume something, and it manifests in a way you didn't expect? What if you assume wealth, and it comes through the death of a loved one, leaving you an inheritance? What if you assume love, and it comes through the end of your current relationship? What if the manifestation brings complications you didn't anticipate? This is where wisdom comes in. When you assume something, make sure you're assuming what you truly want, not just the surface desire. Don't just assume money. Assume wealth that comes through joyful, creative channels. Don't just assume a relationship. Assume a relationship that enhances your life and the life of your partner. Don't just assume success. Assume success that fulfills you and serves others. The law is impersonal and will give you exactly what you assume, but it's wise to assume intelligently. I always recommend the highest version of your desire. Assume not just what you want, but assume it in a way that blesses everyone involved. Consciousness will find the path of least resistance. And if you assume the highest good for all, that path will be harmonious. Let me also address the question of free will one more time, because I know it troubles some of you. You worry that by assuming something about another person, you're violating their free will. But here's what you must understand. There is no other person separate from your consciousness. In the absolute sense, there is only consciousness. What you experience as other people are aspects of your own consciousness pushed out. When you change your assumption about someone, you're not controlling them. You're changing your consciousness. And your consciousness is creating your experience of them. In their own consciousness, in their own world, they have complete free will. But in your world, they reflect your assumptions. This isn't control. This is creation. Think of it this way. In your dream at night, all the people in your dream seem to have free will. They seem to make their own choices. but you're creating the entire dream. You're creating all the characters, all actions, all their choices. They have free will within the dream you're creating. But ultimately, it's your dream. Waking life is exactly the same. You're dreaming it all. Everyone in your world is a character in your dream. They have apparent free will, but ultimately they're reflections of your consciousness. When you change your consciousness, the dream changes. The characters must conform to the new dream. This is not manipulation. This is not control. This is simply how consciousness works. You're not doing something to them. You're creating your experience of them. And this should be liberating, not troubling, because it means you're never at the mercy of anyone else's behavior. You can always change your experience by changing your consciousness. Now, as we move toward the end of our time together, I want to give you a very specific practice for the next 30 days. This is a commitment I'm asking you to make. For 30 days, just 30 days, practice everything I've taught you with complete faithfulness. No wavering, no giving up, no letting circumstances convince you it's not working. Here's your daily practice. Every morning before you get out of bed, spend 5 minutes feeling yourself as the person who already has what you desire. Don't think about it. Don't plan it. Just feel it. Throughout your day, monitor your inner speech. Every time you catch yourself speaking from the old assumption, stop and replace it. Every evening before sleep, do your imaginal scene or your revision. Fall asleep in the consciousness of the wish fulfilled. 30 days. That's all I'm asking. If after 30 days of faithful practice, you see no change whatsoever, not even a small sign, not even an internal shift, then come back to me and tell me this doesn't work. But I promise you, if you do this faithfully, you will see changes. You will see signs. You will see evidence that consciousness is creating reality. And those signs will give you the faith to continue. But here's the key. Don't quit on day 29. Don't give up when it feels like nothing is happening. Remember the mother who imagined her son home for 3 weeks before anything changed physically. Remember the man who imagined owning the studio for 3 weeks before the opportunity appeared. The lag between assumption and manifestation is normal. It doesn't mean it's not working. It means it's working beneath the surface, creating the bridge of incidents. During these 30 days, you'll be tempted to give up. You'll be tempted to test. You'll be tempted to let circumstances convince you it's not real. Don't hold fast to your assumption. Be like Abraham, who considered not his own body or Sarah's body, but believed in the promise. Be faithful to your vision, even when the facts contradict it. This is faith. This is how you prove the law. And let me tell you what will happen if you do this. After 30 days of faithful practice, you'll be a different person. Even if the thing hasn't fully manifested yet, you'll be different. Your consciousness will have shifted. Your assumptions will have changed. Your inner speech will have transformed. And this internal change is more valuable than any external manifestation. Because once you've changed internally, the external has no choice but to follow. You'll also discover something wonderful. You'll realize you're not desperate anymore. You'll realize you're not anxious anymore. You'll realize you're not trying to make it happen anymore. You're simply being it. And that beingness is so satisfying that whether it manifests tomorrow or next year, you're already fulfilled. This is the great paradox. When you no longer need it to manifest to be happy, that's when it manifests most easily. Now, before I let you go, I want to share one more story with you. This is a story that illustrates everything I've taught you tonight. There was a woman who came to me completely broken. She had lost everything. Her marriage had ended. Her business had failed. Her health was deteriorating. She felt like a failure in every area of life. She couldn't see how anything could ever improve. I looked at this woman and I saw what she couldn't see. She was in the consciousness of failure. She assumed she was a failure, and so she experienced failure in every area. Her consciousness of being a failure was creating more failure. It was a vicious cycle. I told her, "You must assume you are successful even when everything says you're not. You must assume you are healthy even when your body says otherwise. You must assume you are loved even when you feel alone. Not because these things are true physically, but because they must become true if you assume them in consciousness." She looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "But how can I assume success when I've failed? How can I assume health when I'm sick? How can I assume love when I'm alone? Isn't that just lying to myself?" And I said to her, "What I say to you now, you're not lying to changing yourself. You're moving from one state of consciousness to another. The physical facts will follow. They always do." She decided to trust me. Every night for 3 months, she did her imaginal work. She imagined herself successful in business. She imagined herself healthy and vibrant. She imagined herself loved and cherished. At first, it felt like pretending. At first, nothing changed physically, but she persisted and slowly, miraculously, everything changed. A new business opportunity appeared. Her health began to improve. She met someone who saw her value. Within a year, her entire life was transformed. Not because of luck, not because of chance. Because she changed her consciousness first, and reality had no choice but to conform. This is what's available to you. I don't care how bad things are right now. I don't care how impossible your situation seems. I don't care how many times you've tried and failed. None of that matters. All that matters is you're willing to change your consciousness. Are you willing to assume you are what you desire, to be even when everything says you're not? Are you willing to persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact? If you are, then nothing can stop you. No. Not your past, not your circumstances, not other people, not the economy, not the state of the world. Nothing external has power over you because you are consciousness, and consciousness is the only power. You are the creator of your world. Act like it. So here's my final charge to you. Go into your life and be bold. Be audacious. Assume things that seem impossible. Dare to be what you have no right to be based on your past or your circumstances. Claim your good before you see any evidence of it. Live in the end before the end appears. This is faith. This is power. This is how you change your reality with your mind. And remember, you're not alone in this. There's a whole community of people who understand this law and are practicing it daily. We're all creating our realities consciously. We're all occupying states of consciousness deliberately. We're all proving that consciousness is the only reality. Join us. Share your journey. Encourage others. Be a living demonstration of what's possible when you understand who you are. Leave a comment right now and tell me, what assumption are you making tonight? What are you daring to be? What state of consciousness are you occupying? I want to know. I want to celebrate with you. I want to witness your transformation, and 30 days from now come back and share what happened. Share how your world changed when you changed your consciousness. Be a testimony to this truth. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to continue this study, subscribe to this channel. I teach these principles every week because I know they can change lives. I've dedicated my life to sharing this truth because I've seen what it does for people. I've seen the hopeless become hopeful. I've seen the poor become wealthy. I've seen the sick become healthy. I've seen the impossible become possible. And I want that for you. But subscription is more than clicking a button. It's a commitment. It's declaring that you're ready to take full responsibility for your life. You're ready to stop being a victim and start being a creator. You're ready to stop begging life for scraps and start commanding it from within. If that's you, then yes, subscribe. Join this community of conscious creators. And here's what I promise you. If you stay with these teachings, if you practice them faithfully, your life 1 year from now will be completely different. Not because of external circumstances changing randomly, but because you will have changed internally. And when you change internally, everything external must change to match. You'll look back on this moment as the turning point. You'll remember this as the night you learned the secret. The night everything changed. The night you discovered who you really are. And you'll be grateful. Grateful for your challenges because they led you here. Grateful for your pain because it made you desperate enough to try something new. Grateful for your failures because they taught you that the old way doesn't work. Everything in your life has been preparing you for this moment. Every experience, every teacher, every book, every conversation, all of it has been leading you to this understanding. Consciousness is the only reality. And you are consciousness. You're not learning something new. You're remembering something ancient. You're waking up to what you've always been but forgot. So let me speak to you now, not as a teacher to a student, but as consciousness to itself. You are me and I am you. We are one consciousness looking at itself through infinite expressions. When I teach you, I am teaching myself. When you learn, you're remembering yourself. There is no separation. There never was. The person you think you are is just one tur in an infinite dream, and you're the dreamer. When you fully grasp this, when you fully awaken to this, you'll realize there's nothing you can't be, nothing you can't have, nothing you can't experience. Because you're not a limited human trying to manipulate an external world. You're infinite consciousness playing in a world of your own creation. The moment you remember this, everything changes. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to believe me. You don't have to take this on faith. You can test it tonight. Right now, assume something, anything, something specific that you can verify. Assume it's already done. Persist in that assumption for 30 days and watch what happens. Let your experience convince you. Let your results prove it to you. Because at the end of the day, I'm not asking you to believe in some abstract philosophy. I'm asking you to test a law, and laws can be tested. They work reliably, predictably, scientifically. This is not religion. This is not mysticism in the sense of something unprovable. This is practical psychology. This is the science of consciousness. And once you prove it to yourself, once you see with your own eyes that your assumptions create your reality, You'll never see life the same way again. You'll never feel powerless again. You'll never worry again in the same way, because you'll know that you're the creator. You'll know that you can change anything by changing your consciousness. You'll know that you are God in human form. This is not blasphemy. This is truth. The Bible tells us, "Ye are gods, and all of your children of the Most High." Jesus said, "Is it not written in your law, I have said, ye are gods." This isn't metaphor. This isn't poetic language. This is literal truth. You are God individualized. You are infinite consciousness expressing itself as a finite person. And when you remember this, when you claim this, you step into your power. So don't shrink back into smallness. Don't accept limitation as your lot. Don't believe the powerless human subject to forces beyond your control. You are consciousness. You are the creative power. You are God. Act accordingly. Claim your good. Assume your greatness. Occupy the state of your wish fulfilled and watch as your world transforms to match your transformed consciousness. This is your birthright. This is your power. This is who you are. Now, as we truly come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with one final thought. Tonight, before you sleep, you're going to do something sacred. You're going to enter the secret place of the Most High. You're going to commune with your own divine nature. You're going to plant a seed in the garden of consciousness that will grow into the harvest of your desire. This is not a small thing. This is not a trivial practice. This is the most powerful work you can do. More powerful than any action you could take in the physical world. Because this is work at the level of cause, not effect. This is creation at its source. So treat it with reverence. Don't just go through the motions. Don't just mechanically imagine something and call it done. Enter into it sacred. Make it real. Make it alive. You're not just visualizing. You're creating. You're not just imagining you're being. You're not just hoping, you're knowing. And as you fall asleep in the consciousness of your wish fulfilled, know that you're not alone. Know that I'm with you. Know that everyone who's ever understood this truth is with you. We're all consciousness. We're all one. And in this oneness, your assumption becomes our assumption. And the power of collective consciousness accelerates its manifestation. Sleep tonight knowing that you are consciousness itself. Sleep tonight knowing that what you assume you become. Sleep tonight knowing that tomorrow morning you will wake up different. And if you continue this practice faithfully, 30 days from now you will look back and marvel at how much has changed. This is my promise to you. This is my teaching to you. This is the secret I've dedicated my life to sharing. Consciousness is the only reality. Assumption creates reality. You are consciousness. Therefore, you are the creator of your reality. Go now with this knowledge. Go with this power. Go with this certainty. Create your world consciously. Live your life deliberately. Be what you desire to be. And watch as reality bends to match your assumption. I believe in you. I believe in this law. I believe in the power of consciousness. And I can't wait to hear your testimony of how this truth transformed your life. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being open to this teaching. Thank you for being willing to test this law. You've given yourself a great gift tonight, the gift of truth. May you use it wisely. May you use it powerfully. May you use it to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Good night, beautiful consciousness. Sleep in the wish fulfilled. Create well. And wake tomorrow to a world that increasingly reflects the God you are. I love you. I honor you. I celebrate you because you are me and I am you. And together we are the infinite consciousness creating infinite worlds. Go in peace. Go in power. Go in the absolute certainty of who you are. You are the I am. You are the creative power. You are God in human form. Never forget this. Never doubt this. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Your assumption is your prayer, and your prayer is always answered. So assume wisely. Assume boldly. Assume from the end and watch as your invisible assumption becomes your visible reality. This is the secret. This is the law. This is the truth that sets you free. Thank you.